Morning. Today is Tuesday, January the 6th, 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. Yesterday, I separate profit from resilience. And today, I want to separate something else that boards often bundle together, which is headcount growth and capability growth. And they are not the same. A business can add people and still become slower, riskier, and more fragile, especially in the early scaling band where roles multiply faster than the processes. So let's take a look at three problems with this. And we are going to start with number one, which is in the UK, productivity remains a constraint. And this is coming from the UK Office for National Statistics reports that the output per hour in Q2 2025 was 1.5% above 2019 levels, while also noting underlying weakness in productivity growth. In other words, without better methods and systems, adding effort does not reliably add any capacity. Problem number two is that board accountability for control is tightening. The UK Corporate Governance Code 2024 reinforces the board's role in monitoring and reviewing risk management and internal controls, with increased emphasis on control effectiveness and disclosure. The problem here is that scaling without control or the control maturity becomes a governance risk rather than just an operational inconvenience. And problem number three is a live example of a listed company that I was reviewing last week and is listed in the London Stock Exchange. And this company annual report shows how low realized revenue and funding pressure can coexist with a large reported pipeline headline. So they have a massive pipeline headline, but not realized revenue. And the risk with this company is that where conversion depends on manual due diligence and bespoke execution, growth becomes fragile and time insensitive. And we're going to disclose this because I'm going to explain this in simple terms. In earlier scale without system is like adding more vehicles, more vans, more trucks, more bicycles in the road without no junction design or no traffic sign or no traffic lights. So you get a massive congestion, but it doesn't speed up the flow of the traffic, right? So you add more things, but without a clear guidance how these things how can be repeatably be the rules of the road be engaged, you don't get any speed. And here's a pattern that boards need to recognize. In the early stages, people solve problems by judgment. So then the business grows and the same problem repeats. So if the organization does not codify the method, you end up paying for the same learning again and again and again. So then attrition hits. And when knowledge sits in people and these departures become an operational incident, then you have a problem, because actually that's what we're saying, that actually the same learning is repeated again and again and again. And here's something from the professional body of HR and people development. The Data Hub benchmarks employee turnover and tenure across the UK workforce using official survey data. This is usually used as a benchmark by management, but the point for boards is not the right turnover number. So what I'm talking about the HR statistics is actually they have a benchmark and say this is for your company size, industries, etc. This is an acceptable turnover. But in terms of boards, it's not about the right number. It's whether your operation model can tolerate turnover without losing control of delivery, right? So there's a distinction here. That is why I call this a system asset problem. It's not a turnover problem. So as a board advisor, what I would propose to consider in this case, three things. Treat the 13 to 49 headcount jump as a control design phase. So boards should ask for evidence that processes are documented, repeatable, and trainable. Remember that the UK Corporate Governance Code focus on internal control as a reminder. You can use this as a reminder that governance strength depends on what is embedded in your company, not what is promised. Proposal number 2 is build a measurable system assets. And system asset is not about software. Cover critical work into codified methods, checklists, playbooks, approval gates, and monitoring routines. This is how you reduce dependency on individual efforts and protect conversion under productivity constraints. And suggestion number 3 is back to the example of our PLC, is redesign reporting to tell the truth about execution, right? So in this particular PLC that I was reviewing last week, the reporting illustrates why pipeline definitions, concentration, and conversion gates matter. Boards should insist that pipeline is separate from probability and that manual effort is visible as a cost and a risk. So this is also where a lot of board conversions go wrong, or a lot of board conversations go wrong. So the board asks for more sales, but managers respond with more activity. But the constraint is often the delivery design. It's not just how many bodies we throw into that problem. It's a long, the 90s expression. If due diligence is bespoke, the business does not scale smoothly. If monitoring is manual, the business cannot accelerate without increasing risk. So if knowledge is tribal, meaning that actually it's sitting on people's head, attrition becomes a threat to continuity. So you have here at board level to make a decision. So the move is very simple. Stop asking how many people do we need here, but you can start asking what must become system run so people can multiply impact, right? So why this matters? And this is 3 things why it matters. 1 is outcomes, 2nd is differentiators, and the 3rd thing is a risk reduction. In terms of outcome, number 1, back to the UK Corporate Governance Code, it made clear that boards should monitor, review, and report on the effectiveness of risk management and internal controls. So systematization is not an operations preference. It is a governance requirement when scale increases complexity. As a differentiator, back to the professional body of HR and people development turnover, the benchmark reinforces a practical truth. People movement is normal. So resilience comes from designing processes that survive turnover, not hoping turnover stays low. And number 3, how you reduce the risk. And again, back to the example from our PLC that I reviewed last week. Their disclosures illustrate the cost of conversion fragility, where low realized revenue sits alongside the large pipeline narrative. So tighten definitions and codifying execution are how you turn narrative into repeatable performance. Well, what could you do with this today? So it's not something dramatic as a restructure or a new org chart, but a focus, control, and system test. And one action that you can take today home is ask management to name 3 processes where a single resignation would materially slow delivery and what is documented to prevent that. If the answer is nothing is documented or partially documented, that is not a blame issue. It's a design gap, and design gaps can be fixed. So if your PLC board wants to reduce execution and continuity risk during early scale, book a structured diagnosis session where you and your team map the system assets, pinpoint single point of failure processes, and set control evidence so you can report to your board with confidence. So what's next step? Stay tuned, because tomorrow I will move from people and controls to the underlying asset class and why inventory is being treated differently in working capital strategies. That's it for today. Like, comment, save this post, and join my 759 plus newsletter LinkedIn subscribers to keep receiving these and many other useful insights on how an advisory board can help your organization. And if this is relevant to you or your organization, I have to compare notes on advisory board designed. So a short Zoom call or DM me will work.